The transport shuttle moved slowly through the thin silver clouds that surrounded the frontier planet. Inside, Lieutenant Aaron Hale stood near the small window and watched the unfamiliar world grow larger beneath him. It was his first assignment since the war ended, and he had expected something simple. Guard duty, patrol routes, maybe training alien recruits who still did not trust humans. Instead, he had been sent to Outpost K-47, the most distant human position on the edge of the Varethi Empire. The Varethi were old, older than human space travel. Their cities floated above oceans of violet light, and their royal bloodline had ruled for thousands of cycles. During the recent Galactic War, they had remained neutral, watching humanity fight against stronger and older civilizations. Humans had survived. That alone made other species uneasy. Aaron adjusted the collar of his dark uniform. He was not famous. He was not a decorated hero. He had simply survived enough battles to understand fear and keep moving anyway. His superiors had called him steady under pressure. He had not realized that description would bring him here. The shuttle docked with a quiet hiss. When the hatch opened, cold air filled his lungs. The outpost interior was made of smooth silver alloy, its walls curved like the inside of a shell. Alien officers stood at a distance, watching him with unreadable expressions. Their eyes were larger than human eyes, reflective and calm but not welcoming. Commander Elira, the Varethi liaison officer, approached him. Her voice was clear and controlled. "Lieutenant Aaron Hale, welcome to Outpost K-47. He gave a respectful nod. "Thank you, Commander." Awaiting assignment. She studied him longer than necessary, as if measuring something invisible. "Your assignment is unusual." He had heard that word before missions that turned dangerous. "I'm ready," he replied. She led him through narrow corridors toward the central command chamber. As they walked, he noticed the quiet tension among the mixed crew. Human technicians avoided eye contact with Varethi guards. Varethi officers whispered softly when he passed. Something was already wrong, and he had only just arrived. Inside the chamber, a holographic projection of the Varethi capital shimmered above the central table. It was beautiful and distant, its towers rising like glass mountains. Commander Elira activated a secure field. The room fell silent. "Lieutenant," she said, "your first assignment begins tonight." He straightened. "You are to travel to the royal palace. You will remain there for one night, alone, in the presence of Her Majesty Queen Sarilith." For a moment, Aaron thought he had misheard. "Alone?" he asked carefully. "Yes. In the same building," he clarified, "in her private residence wing." The words settled heavily in the room. He kept his face neutral. "Purpose of assignment." "It is a ritual," the commander said. "The Varethi Crown conducts a trial of night with representatives of emerging powers. It determines whether a species is worthy of deeper alliance." Aaron blinked once. "And previous representatives?" She did not answer immediately. "They failed," she finally said. "Some withdrew. Some panicked, some revealed intentions that were not aligned with peace." He understood the meaning behind her calm tone. The ritual was a test, possibly psychological, possibly political, possibly something more dangerous. "Why me?" he asked. Commander Elira looked directly into his eyes. "Because you are not the strongest human, you are not the most decorated, you are not the most ambitious, you are balanced." He was not sure whether that was praise or warning. The briefing ended quickly. A transport would leave at dusk. He had only hours to prepare. Back in his temporary quarters, Aaron sat on the edge of the narrow bunk. He replayed the conversation in his mind. Spend a night with the alien queen. Rumors about Queen Sarilith were many. Some described her as distant and cold. Others said she rarely spoke without purpose. A few whispered that she could sense dishonesty simply by observing breathing patterns. Humans had fought wars using fire and steel. The Varethi ruled through observation and patience. Aaron checked his sidearm, then locked it in the security locker. The ritual rules forbade heavy weapons. Only ceremonial defense tools were allowed. That alone made him uneasy. As the artificial sun outside the station dimmed into a deep blue glow, he boarded a smaller royal shuttle. The journey to the capital was silent. The planet below shimmered like liquid crystal. When they descended, the palace came into view. It was not built like human architecture. Instead of sharp angles and towers, it flowed outward in curves, as if grown rather than constructed. Light ran softly through its surface, like veins beneath translucent skin. The shuttle landed within a circular courtyard. Varethi guards lined the pathway, their armor reflecting faint starlight. Aaron stepped down alone. The doors of the palace opened slowly. Inside, the halls were vast and quiet. The air felt heavier, carrying a faint scent like distant rain. He walked forward, guided by silent attendants who never touched him but remained close enough to signal direction. Finally, he entered a large chamber. At the far end, standing before a wall of transparent crystal that revealed the stars, was Queen Sarilith. She was taller than he expected, her form graceful and composed. A faint glow traced the patterns along her skin, shifting gently as if responding to emotion. Her crown was simple, a thin arc of silver resting above calm, observant eyes. She did not move when he approached. Aaron stopped at a respectful distance and bowed his head slightly. "Your Majesty." Her voice filled the chamber, smooth and steady. "Lieutenant Aaron, Hail of Earth." "Yes, Your Majesty." She studied him without speaking. The silence stretched longer than comfort allowed. He kept his breathing even. He did not fidget. He did not look away. Finally, she stepped closer. "You understand why you are here?" "I understand it is a trial of trust." Her gaze sharpened slightly. "And do you trust us?" He considered the question carefully. "I trust that you believe this test is necessary," he said. A faint change passed across her features, perhaps surprise. "That was not the question," she said. "No," he replied calmly, "but it is the honest answer." The glow along her skin shifted softly. "The trial of night begins now," she said. "You will remain within this wing until dawn. You may move freely within its boundaries. You will encounter circumstances. Your responses will be observed." "Observed by you?" he asked. "By many." So it was political as well. She gestured toward a side corridor. "You will be given a chamber, rest if you wish, or explore." He inclined his head and followed the indicated path. The chamber prepared for him was simple but elegant. No weapons. No obvious surveillance devices, though he assumed they were hidden well. A low table stood near a window overlooking a luminous garden. He did not sit immediately. Instead, he examined the room slowly. Floor, walls, ceiling. He noticed subtle shifts in lighting when he crossed certain points. Pressure sensors, likely. After a few minutes, a soft chime echoed through the corridor. He stepped outside. A Varethi servant lay collapsed near the hallway intersection, clutching her side. A broken service drone sparked nearby. Aaron moved quickly but carefully. He knelt beside the servant. "Can you hear me?" he asked gently. She nodded weakly. The drone's core was unstable, emitting faint pulses. If it exploded, it would injure more than one person. He had a choice: secure the drone first or assist the injured servant. He pulled the servant behind a curved support pillar, placing his body between her and the malfunctioning machine. Then he removed a compact field stabilizer from his belt, one of the few allowed tools, and approached the drone cautiously. He did not rush. He adjusted the stabilizer frequency by hand rather than forcing a shutdown. After 10 seconds, the sparks faded. The machine powered down safely. He returned to the servant. "Medical assistance is coming," he assured her. Indeed, within moments, royal medics arrived. They glanced at him with unreadable expressions. From somewhere unseen, Queen Sarilith watched. Later, as the artificial night deepened, another test unfolded. The lighting failed in a section of the corridor. Emergency systems flickered. A deep mechanical rumble vibrated through the floor. Aaron felt it before he heard it, the subtle shift of atmosphere pressure. A containment door at the far end began closing automatically. On the other side, faint voices called out. Without hesitation, he ran toward the narrowing gap. He slid through just before the door sealed shut. Inside, 2 young Varethi attendants stood near a cracked energy conduit. The crack spread slowly, threatening to release a surge. He assessed the situation quickly. The conduit required manual override from both ends simultaneously. That meant splitting risk. "You two step back," he instructed calmly. They hesitated, not used to taking orders from a human. "Now," he added firmly but without anger. They obeyed. He placed one hand on the override panel, bracing himself for the feedback. The energy pulse surged through his arm, burning sharply but not enough to cause permanent damage. He gritted his teeth and completed the shutdown sequence. The lights stabilized. The attendants stared at him, shocked. "Why did you cross the door?" one asked quietly. "Because you were on the other side," he replied simply. Elsewhere in the palace, nobles observing through hidden channels exchanged uneasy glances. Near midnight, the final challenge began. Aaron returned to the main chamber where the queen waited. The star-filled sky behind her shimmered with distant nebulae. "You have responded to the first trials," she said. "Now we proceed to the core." The floor beneath them shifted slightly. A projection formed in the center of the room, displaying a strategic scenario, a simulated invasion of the Varethi capital by a hostile fleet. "Command the defense," she instructed. "I do not know your fleet structure," he said. "You know war," she replied. He stepped toward the projection. Ships moved across the display in elegant patterns. Varethi formations were precise but rigid. He studied them for several seconds. "Your formations are beautiful," he said quietly, "but predictable." A murmur echoed faintly through unseen observers. He began adjusting positions, introducing controlled unpredictability. He recommended evacuating civilian districts before reinforcing key defenses. "You abandon territory," the queen observed. "I preserve lives," he answered. The simulation intensified. Enemy ships targeted central infrastructure. He diverted power from royal towers to shield residential zones. "Your palace would be vulnerable," she said. "It can be rebuilt," he replied. "People cannot." The scenario ended abruptly. Silence returned. Queen Seralith stepped closer, her expression more thoughtful than cold now. "Other species prioritized dominance," she said. "They sacrificed civilians to maintain symbolic strength." He met her gaze steadily. "Symbols do not matter if no one survives to see them." For a long moment neither spoke. Then a subtle tremor ran through the palace, not part of the simulation. A real explosion sounded somewhere deep within the lower levels. The queen's eyes shifted sharply. "This was not scheduled," she said. Alarms began echoing through the halls. Aaron's instincts sharpened instantly. "Where?" "Power core sector," she replied. That was no simple accident. The doors to the chamber sealed automatically, isolating them. From hidden speakers, a distorted voice echoed. "The trial ends now." The queen's gaze hardened. "It appears," she said calmly, "that tonight is more than a ritual." Aaron stepped beside her, not behind. "Then we finish it properly," he said. The lights flickered again, and the palace trembled as a deeper threat began to awaken beneath their feet. The night was far from over. The alarms continued to echo through the palace, low and steady, like a warning heartbeat. Red light spread across the smooth walls, turning the elegant chamber into something tense and dangerous. Lieutenant Aaron Hale stood beside Queen Seralith, watching the sealed doors as distant vibrations traveled through the floor beneath them. The queen's expression changed from calm observation to focused command. She touched a panel along the wall, and a holographic display appeared between them, showing sections of the palace flashing with warning symbols. "Power core instability," she said quietly. "Security systems compromised. Someone has bypassed internal protocols." Aaron nodded slowly. "Sabotage." "Yes." He scanned the display, pathways sealed, emergency teams moving, several corridors marked as inaccessible. "Can we reach the power core?" he asked. She hesitated for only a moment. "There is a secondary route, few know it." "Then we should move." The queen studied him briefly, as if confirming something she had begun to suspect earlier during the trial. Without another word, she pressed a hidden control. A section of the wall slid open, revealing a narrow passage lit by faint blue light. They entered together. The corridor curved downward, away from the main halls. The air grew cooler, and the sounds of the palace above faded into distant echoes. Aaron walked slightly ahead but kept glancing back to ensure the queen remained close. "You are not afraid," she said after several moments. "I am," he replied honestly, "but fear helps you pay attention." Her eyes reflected faint light. "Many species deny fear to appear strong. Humans learned that pretending usually makes things worse," he said. She seemed to consider that. The passage opened into a maintenance junction filled with cables and energy conduits running along the ceiling. The lights flickered irregularly. Aaron knelt near a terminal, scanning the interface quickly. He could not read all the alien symbols, but patterns of energy flow were universal. "Power surge started here," he said. "Triggered remotely. Internal access only," she added. "Someone inside the palace," he concluded. A distant crash echoed behind them. The queen turned slightly, her posture tightening. "They may attempt to isolate us." "Then we stay ahead," Aaron said. They moved deeper toward the core. As they reached the next intersection, two royal guards appeared, weapons raised. Their armor bore the crest of the Queen's Council rather than her personal guard. "Your Majesty!" one of them said, voice controlled but tense. You must return to the main chamber immediately. Security protocol. The Queen studied them carefully. Lower your weapons. They did not. Aaron sensed the shift instantly. Something was wrong. These orders came from the Council, the guard continued. Human presence has destabilized the ritual. We must secure you. The Queen's gaze hardened slightly. Stand aside. Instead, the guard stepped closer. Aaron moved slowly, hands visible, posture calm but ready. Everyone relax, he said evenly. If the power core fails, none of this will matter. One guard glanced at him with visible hostility. Your species brings chaos. Maybe, Aaron replied quietly, but chaos isn't exploding the power grid, someone else is. The moment stretched. Then the corridor lights flickered again, stronger this time. The floor shook violently, forcing all of them to brace against the walls. The Queen used the distraction. Lieutenant, she said sharply. He understood instantly. In one smooth motion, he stepped forward, redirecting the nearest guard's weapon downward without harming him. The movement was precise and controlled, avoiding unnecessary force. The second guard hesitated, unsure. We don't have time for this, Aaron said calmly. The Queen walked past them without looking back. After a brief pause, the guards lowered their weapons, confused rather than defeated. They did not follow. They continued through the passage until they reached a large circular chamber. At its center floated a massive energy sphere surrounded by rotating rings of light, the palace power core. Energy pulses flickered unevenly across its surface. Stability dropping, the Queen said. Aaron approached the control interface. Symbols and data scrolled rapidly. I need access, he said. She placed her hand on the panel, authorizing his command. Several restrictions vanished from the display. He worked quickly, rerouting power flows, isolating damaged sections. But another problem appeared, an external override locking certain systems. Someone installed a deadlock, he said. If we shut down manually, it could overload. The Queen's eyes narrowed. They want the palace destroyed. And probably blame humans, he added quietly. She did not deny it. Footsteps approached from the opposite entrance. Several council guards entered, accompanied by a tall Varethi noble wearing ceremonial armor. Your Majesty, the noble said, voice smooth but cold. This ends now. The human has compromised security. We must remove him. Aaron stepped slightly forward, but not aggressively. The Queen's expression became unreadable. You initiated this sabotage. The noble tilted his head slightly. We initiated a demonstration. Humanity is unstable, dangerous. The trial of night proves it. By endangering your own people, she asked. Sacrifice is necessary for clarity. Aaron felt anger rise but kept his voice steady. Or maybe you just don't like change. The noble ignored him. Human presence weakens tradition. We preserve order. The power core crackled loudly, sending arcs of light across the chamber. If we don't fix this, Aaron said, there won't be a palace left to argue about. The noble smiled faintly. Then perhaps the trial ends with truth revealed. The Queen stepped closer to Aaron, a clear sign of trust that surprised everyone present. Lieutenant, she said quietly, continue. He nodded. Working quickly, he analyzed the deadlock system. It required simultaneous manual input from two separate consoles on opposite sides of the chamber. I need help, he said. Without hesitation, the Queen moved toward the second console. The noble's expression darkened. You trust him? Yes, she answered simply. Energy surged again. The chamber shook. On my signal, Aaron said. They synchronized movements carefully. He adjusted energy flow while she unlocked royal protocols. Now, he said. They activated both panels. The core emitted a sharp flash of light. For a moment, everything went silent. Then the energy stabilized. The warning lights faded from red to steady white. The danger passed. The noble stepped backward slowly, clearly unsettled. You would choose a human over your own council, he asked. The Queen faced him directly. I choose survival and truth. Security teams loyal to the Queen entered moments later, surrounding the conspirators. The noble did not resist but continued watching Aaron with cold curiosity. As they escorted the council members away, silence returned to the chamber. The Queen exhaled slowly. You could have fled when danger appeared, she said, and leave you to handle it alone, Aaron replied. That didn't seem right. She studied him carefully. Many leaders have stood beside me, she said softly. Few have stood with me. He did not know how to respond, so he simply nodded. They left the power core together, walking through quieter corridors now that the crisis had ended. The artificial night deepened outside the palace windows. "The trial of night was meant to reveal character," she said after a while. "Tonight revealed more than expected." "Does that mean I passed?" he asked lightly. Her expression softened slightly, the closest thing to a smile he had seen from her. "The night is not yet over," she said. Ahead of them, the corridor opened toward the central chamber once more. But Aaron sensed that something had changed between them. The distance she had maintained earlier was gone, replaced by cautious respect. Outside, beyond the palace walls, the first faint light of approaching dawn began to touch the horizon. But one final challenge remained waiting in the quiet halls, unseen but inevitable, as the consequences of their choices began to unfold. The palace grew quiet after the power core stabilized, but the silence did not feel peaceful. It felt watchful. Lieutenant Aaron Hale walked beside Queen Seralith through the long, curved corridor leading back toward the central chamber. The red warning lights were gone now, replaced by a calm silver glow. Outside the tall crystal walls, faint light from the coming dawn began to touch the distant horizon of the planet, but Aaron knew the night was not truly over. "The council will not remain silent," he said carefully. "They will not," the Queen agreed. Her voice was steady again, but something beneath it had changed. It was no longer distant, it carried weight. "They risked destroying their own palace," Aaron continued. "That means they were desperate." "Yes," she replied. "Desperate leaders are the most dangerous." They entered the grand chamber where the trial of night had begun. The stars beyond the transparent wall were fading slowly as the planet turned. The chamber was empty at first, but Aaron sensed hidden observers behind the smooth surfaces. The Varethi rarely showed their full audience. The Queen walked to the center of the room and turned to face him. "The formal trial has concluded," she said. "You acted with restraint. You protected those beneath you. You prioritized lives over symbols." Aaron folded his hands behind his back. "It seemed like the correct choice. For humans, perhaps," she said. "For my empire, that philosophy is new." Before he could respond, the chamber doors opened with a low hum. Members of the royal council entered, escorted by armed palace guards. Among them was the noble who had confronted them near the power core. His posture was controlled, but his eyes were cold. "Your Majesty," he said, bowing slightly. "The crisis has ended. We request immediate review of the humans' conduct." The Queen did not move. "There will be review," she replied calmly, "in open session." A faint ripple of surprise passed through the council. "Open session?" another council member asked sharply. "That would expose internal matters." "Internal matters were already exposed when you endangered this palace," the Queen said evenly. Aaron remained silent, aware that this was now political territory far beyond military protocol. The noble stepped forward slightly. "The human interfered with council authority. He accessed restricted systems. He acted independently of Varethi command structure." "I acted to stop an explosion," Aaron said calmly. "You presume equality," the noble replied. "No," Aaron answered. "I presume survival." The tension in the chamber thickened. The Queen raised one hand and silence returned instantly. "Lieutenant Aaron Hale," she said formally, "you are accused of overstepping authority within Varethi sovereign territory. What is your defense?" Aaron met her gaze. He understood this was part of something larger, not just a political maneuver, but a final test. "My defense is simple," he said. "I did what was necessary to protect lives. If that is overstepping, then I accept responsibility." The noble's eyes narrowed. "You admit guilt." "I admit action," Aaron replied. "There is a difference." The Queen studied him carefully. "If we decide your presence created instability," she continued, "you could be removed from this outpost, possibly permanently." "I understand. You show no fear of exile." He paused briefly. "I fear failure more than removal," he said. "If humans want respect in this galaxy, we have to act in ways that deserve it, even when it costs us." A long silence followed. Then the Queen turned toward the council. "You initiated sabotage during a sacred trial," she said, her voice no longer soft. "You endangered civilians and palace staff. You intended to create a disaster that could be blamed on a visiting representative." The noble remained composed. "We acted to test the Queen's judgment." "You tested loyalty," she corrected, "and revealed your own." The chamber doors opened once more. This time, several Varethi citizens entered, technicians, attendants, and guards who had been present during the crisis. Their expressions were serious but steady. "They will speak," the queen said. One by one, witnesses described what had happened. They spoke of the human officer shielding an injured servant. They spoke of him crossing a sealed door to protect young attendants. They spoke of him risking personal harm to stabilize unstable energy systems. None described aggression. None described dominance. Only responsibility. The noble listened without visible reaction, but tension crept into his posture. When the final witness stepped aside, the queen faced the council again. "The trial of night was designed to reveal the nature of emerging powers," she said. "Tonight it revealed the nature of some within my own ranks." The noble stepped forward. "You would side with an outsider?" "I side with the truth," she replied firmly. Guards moved subtly closer to the council members. The noble gave one last attempt. "Humanity is unpredictable. They adapt too quickly. They change established systems." Aaron finally spoke again. "Change isn't destruction," he said calmly. "It's growth. You survived thousands of cycles because you adapted once. Now you resist adapting again." The words hung in the air. The queen looked at him thoughtfully. "He speaks without insult," she observed, "without threat." "Because threats are easy," Aaron said. "Building trust is harder." The chamber grew quiet as the first light of dawn reached the crystal wall. Soft golden color spilled across the room, touching the silver floor and reflecting in the queen's eyes. She stepped forward into the light. "Lieutenant Aaron Hale of Earth," she said clearly, "the trial of night is complete." All eyes turned to her. "You have demonstrated courage without recklessness, strength without cruelty, authority without arrogance." Aaron remained still. "In accordance with Varethi law, I declare humanity worthy of formal alliance negotiations." A quiet wave of shock moved through the council. "And," she continued, "I appoint Lieutenant Aaron Hale as special liaison advisor to the Crown during this transitional period." The noble's composure finally cracked. "This violates precedent?" "Yes," the queen said, "it does." Guards stepped forward decisively and removed the dissenting council members from the chamber. There was no violence, no struggle, only the quiet ending of a political era. As the chamber emptied, only Aaron and the queen remained, along with a few loyal guards at a respectful distance. The dawn fully illuminated the palace now. The artificial tension of night faded. "You could have chosen a safer path," Aaron said quietly. "Removed me." "Calm the council." She looked out at the horizon. "Safety is not always stability," she replied, "and stability is not always strength." He nodded slowly. "For many cycles," she continued, "we ruled by distance, observation, control. But control without understanding becomes isolation." She turned to face him fully. "Tonight you stood beside me, not behind me. You did not seek advantage, you sought resolution." "I just did my job," he said. She tilted her head slightly. "Then perhaps your species has redefined what job means." He allowed himself a small, respectful smile. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now," she said, "we rebuild trust both inside this palace and beyond it." Outside, the capital city awakened. Floating platforms shifted into daytime positions. Energy bridges shimmered across open air. News of the failed sabotage and the successful stabilization would already be spreading. Within hours, the entire Varethi Empire would know that a human had stood within the palace during a crisis and helped prevent catastrophe. Aaron felt the weight of that realization. "I'll need a new uniform then," he said lightly. The queen's expression softened again, that near smile returning. "Yes," she replied, "advisors should look prepared." A quiet chime sounded from the chamber entrance. Commander Elira stepped inside, bowing respectfully. "Your Majesty," she said, "Outpost K-47 reports stable conditions. Human Command has requested status update." The queen glanced at Aaron. "You may inform them," she said, "that the night was productive." Elira allowed herself the faintest hint of relief. Aaron walked toward the crystal wall, looking out over the waking city. When he had arrived at the outpost, he had expected routine duty. Instead, he had become part of something much larger, not through battle, not through conquest, but through restraint. Behind him, Queen Sarilith joined him at the window. "The galaxy watches humanity closely," she said, "some with fear, some with curiosity." "And you?" he asked. She looked at him thoughtfully. "With cautious optimism," she answered. The sun rose fully over the horizon, bathing the palace in warm light. The trial of night had ended. But a new chapter, one built on trust rather than suspicion, had just begun.